The words hung between us, heavy and raw, the silence wrapping around us like a blanket. I could feel the air shift, the weight of what I had just said sinking in. Darling, this is the name of the woman I want to marry. I watched as her breath caught in her throat. I saw the way her fingers curled around her sleeves, clutching them tightly. It was like she was holding on to something fragile, something that could slip away if she wasn't careful. She was cautious, guarded, like love had never been something easy for her to hold on to. I didn't blame her. Maybe for her, love had always been something fragile, something easily broken. A shattered promise, a broken heart, a long list of disappointments that had left their marks, scars that ran deeper than she was willing to admit. Maybe for her, love had become something she didn't think she could trust. You don't have to say that just to make me feel special, she murmured softly. I looked at her, my gaze steady and unwavering. I would not say it if I didn't mean it. She didn't respond immediately. Instead, her gaze lowered as if searching for something, looking for answers she wasn't sure she could find. Maybe she didn't believe me. Maybe she was trying to convince herself that what I was saying wasn't true. But I saw it in her eyes. It wasn't doubt. It was something deeper. It was the weight of her past, the years of uncertainty that had built walls around her heart. Someone who actually means them, she finally answered, her voice small but full of vulnerability. It was then that I realized. No one had ever made her feel safe in love. No one had ever shown her that love could be something real, something solid, something worth fighting for. She had been an afterthought, a second choice, someone who had always wondered if she was good enough. And I could see it all in her eyes. She was afraid. Afraid that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't enough. I took her hand, steady and firm, unwilling to let her pull away, unwilling to let her doubts push me away. I did not choose you on a whim, I said, my voice clear and strong. I'm not saying this just to make you feel better. I paused, squeezing her hand, feeling the tension in her fingers slowly start to loosen. Without hesitation, without doubt, I can say this. You are the one I want, forever. She looked at me, her expression a mix of disbelief and uncertainty. She was trying to process my words, trying to understand if I meant them, trying to figure out if it was really true. But what if one day you regret it? She asked, her voice shaky, as though the fear of being let down was still too strong. I smiled softly at her, tilting my head. That won't happen, I said, my voice steady. Because I love you for today, for tomorrow, and every day after. Her lips parted slightly, as though she were about to say something, but no words came. Instead, there was only silence. Thick silence. A silence that was filled with emotions we didn't know how to voice. And then, slowly, I saw it. Her fingers, which had been clenched so tightly, slowly relaxed in my grip. The uncertainty in her eyes softened, and in that moment, I saw hope begin to slip in. Maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to believe me. You really mean it? She asked, quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I smiled again, a little wider this time, my heart swelling. I would not say it if I didn't mean it. For the first time, I saw something change in her. The walls she had built around her heart began to crack. Just a little, but enough to let in something she had tried so hard to keep out. Hope. Hope, and maybe even love itself. She stared at me, her gaze intense, searching my face for any sign of hesitation. I held her gaze without flinching, without looking away. I knew she needed to see that I was serious, that I wasn't going anywhere, that I wasn't going to change my mind. I don't understand you, she said, her voice thick with emotion, her brows furrowing slightly in confusion. I let out a deep sigh. I know this won't be easy, I said softly, because you've never seen yourself the way I see you. I paused, letting that sink in. The way I see you, with all your flaws, all your imperfections, and yet, to me, you are perfect. She let out a small, uncontained laugh. It was a soft sound, full of wonder, but there was also sadness in it, as though she didn't believe what I was saying. "And how do you see me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked at her, my heart aching for her. "I see you as someone who made me better," I said. "Someone who taught me patience, understanding, and love in ways I never knew before. I see you as someone who deserves to be loved, completely, unconditionally, and without hesitation." She flinched slightly at my words, as though they had struck too deep, as though the words I spoke were getting too close to a wound she wasn't ready to heal. I reached for her hand, but this time she hesitated. I could feel the uncertainty in her fingers, the way they twitched as though she wanted to pull away but couldn't bring herself to. "What if we can't be who you think?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I could hear the doubt in her words. I could see it in her eyes. The fear that maybe, despite everything I had said, we weren't meant to be. The fear that maybe we were just two people too broken to ever fit together. I took a step closer to her, my hand still holding hers, steady and calm. "Then I'll remind myself why I chose you," I said firmly. "I'll remind myself of why I fell in love with you in the first place, and I'll fight for us, because you are worth fighting for." Her defenses were still up, but I could see them beginning to crack. Just a little, but enough for me to reach through. And for the first time I saw the fear in her eyes begin to soften, replaced by something else. Something that I hadn't seen in her for a long time. Trust. And then, her lips trembled as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. She was holding back tears. I could see it in her eyes, but she wasn't ready to let them fall just yet. I wanted to take away her pain. I wanted to tell her that everything was going to be okay, that love would heal us, that we could make it through anything together. But I knew that wasn't enough. I knew she needed to believe it herself. I smiled softly at her, the weight of everything we had been through pressing down on me. "I want all of you," I said gently. "Not just the easy parts. I want your flaws, your fears, your scars, because they are part of who you are, and I love you for all of it." She let out a small, uncontained sob, and this time, I didn't try to hold it back. I didn't try to stop her tears, because in that moment, I realized something important. She had been holding herself back for so long. She had been afraid to let herself truly love, truly trust, because of all the pain in her past. But now, I could see the shift, the change. Her fingers, which had once been tense, now relaxed in my grip, and for the first time, I saw the walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble. Not completely, not yet, but just enough for me to see that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to let me in. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't thick with doubt or uncertainty. Instead, it was filled with something new, something hopeful. And I knew, deep down, that this was just the beginning. Because love, real love, wasn't just about the easy moments. It was about holding onto each other when things got tough, when doubts crept in, when fear threatened to take over. It was about being there for each other, through all the broken pieces and all the scars, and knowing that together, we could make something beautiful. And in that moment, I knew. I knew that no matter what came next, no matter how difficult, the road ahead would be, I had found the woman I wanted to marry. I had found the one person who would make everything worth it.